Hey there and welcome back. So in the previous video we created our workflow, our deployment job, and we can see that we successfully managed to run the workflow, and it tested the API and also deployed it to Heroku. We have a working remote API up and running there. So just a quick follow-up notes about this, that we had this test, we can see we have this test job here, and we were using Node version 14. And if you want to if you want to have GitHub test additional versions of Node, then you can specify those really easily just by specifying, let's say we can take version 12. Let's just see, we need to provide an X here instead. Whoop. So now we've instructed GitHub in testing 10 and 12 and 14. So it's going to iterate through all these versions and run the tests for each version. So it's a really easy way to instruct GitHub in testing multiple versions of the environment. And if we just add this here, and let's just add it multiple node versions to test. So we commit this to GitHub here now. And if we head over to our Actions tab, then we can see that added multiple node versions to test. We also have a new output here because we can see it's going to test all these different versions now. So now instead of one job in the test, we got 3 jobs. And if we can click on that, it's going to run the test in parallel. And then we can see eventually they should pass. We also have the test 14 that should also be running. Okay, so we can see all the different tests are passing, and now the deployment job is allowed to proceed. And if we go click on that, we can see that it's going to deploy our app now on Heroku. And we can also go to our, you can see in Heroku, build in progress, because we just committed to the Git repo that is contained inside Heroku. So it's going to build it, and we can see the build progress as well in here. So build succeeded, compressing and all this stuff. Okay, so we can see it's launching, releasing version 14. It matches what we have in let's just go to the overview here, version 14. So this has passed. Actually, let's just see if we had an error there. No, we didn't have an error. So everything passed here. Okay, so really easy way to add additional test environments just by specifying them in the node version in the matrix. Okay, so the last thing I want to show is basically what this will allow us to do. And if we somehow are working on the code, and let's just say we're making a small change in the code, because right now we're testing, you can see here we're testing our workflow. So we're testing if we are, when we register, log in a user, create a product, verify that. Then we can see that if any of these tests are failing, then it's not going to deploy them. So if for some reason, let's just imagine that we changed the authorization. We have a rule that will tell us that if we go to the auth, that if our validations fail, you can see in the validation.js we have a register validation that it should be a minimum of 6 characters. So if I change something in here, if I specify that it should just be a minimum of 2, probably not what we want, but let's just try to do this. If we modify some things here, we have a test right now that will actually test that our API will actually throw an error when we don't have a valid password. So if I modify this in my validation now to accept a password of only 2 for some reason, if I commit this, Let's just make a command here, commit message called add error on purpose. So then we're just pushing this to GitHub again, so we can see that if we go to actions, if we refresh, we had add error on purpose. So what should happen now is that our test should fail, because we have one test that expect to get an error from let's see here, if we find the test here, this test here will expect to get an error message from our REST API because we're using an invalid password. So we can see here that if we go and click on the jobs here, if we take, let's just take version 14, this is what we're running on. We had an error in here, and if we inspect it, that should register user with invalid input. So it was expecting to get 400. That was an error code, because it expects this to give us 400 because this is not a valid password. But we changed some code in here, but we didn't think of our test. So our test is failing now, okay? Because our password is actually valid now because we changed our validation rules. So it got 200 here. This is what our test is telling us. It actually got 200. So the test is failing. We have code that has not passed the test. And that means that we should not commit our code to Heroku. And it didn't do that. So it is working as expected. Okay, so I think this concludes what I wanted to mention about this continuous integration and continuous deployment, that we have an automated way now to test and also deploy if our tests are passing. And it's really powerful when we want to ensure the quality of our code. All right, so hope you make this work and have fun with this. Bye-bye.